David, it is hotter than shit in here. What's going on?
Well, our studio has been above 80 degrees this entire year.
Probably feels like a year, huh?
It's been at least 5 days, and we just had the AC replaced. We called out a specialist. He came in, said I could fix it for you, and came home to the studio, and my belongings, all the studio's belongings, were covered in like a black soot. So not only are we not getting cooled anymore, I mean, it's a balmy 78, but at least it's not an 83 like we've been dealing with for the past week.
Listen, so what you're telling me is
it could be worse.
Despite having dealt with this for the past few days, it's better now than it was.
Check your privilege. Do you understand how white this problem is for you right now? Don't you have any heart?
No, actually not.
You're lucky you're not living in a mosquito net filled,
Actually, anybody that knows me knows that other than being hangry, which I believe that's a universal human thing, like everybody gets that. Other than that, being excessively uncomfortably hot, that's a no-go for me. I might have to bow out of this episode.
Are you saying that I
think you're gonna have to do the rest of this episode
You might be more livid than normal?
Yeah.
So you're like going Super Saiyan, like you're breaking through that level 2 into the level 3. You're becoming Goku part whatever the hell. Is your hair blue yet, by the way?
I don't know the levels, but
I don't
whatever.
I just like him a lot when he goes, like you didn't have a childhood. If you didn't try to go Super Saiyan at least once, like when no one was looking, and just mom was out of the house.
See if you could do it.
Oh, I think I just pooped my pants. Anyway, important.
I mean, I've tried that getting angry at video games, but
that's
probably more than I should have admitted publicly. But
we're all family here.
That's right. In the sane space, everybody's family.
But
when
anyway,
you're here, you're family.
We family.
Sorry, don't come after me, Olive Garden, for trademark infringement.
We were talking about Cuomo.
Like that. I don't know if they've.
He likes kissing cousins, apparently. But do you want to drop into this episode?
Yeah, I think we should.
To expedite.
Yeah, before I have a fucking heat stroke.
Well, listen, I'm just trying to get you your heat shock proteins. Sitting in a sauna is good for you at least 3 times a week. Breaking a schwitz is always good for your heart. As one of our
fair, but I don't think I should try to cram 3 sauna sessions into one. That's what this episode's going to be. If we don't drop in.
Nothing succeeds like excess, Dane.
It's fair enough. But before I die, should we drop in?
Why not?
Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 102, which can be found at WMDpodcast.com/102. You can find it on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and it'll be right at the top of the list. You can also find the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction there as well. And then also link up with us on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Everywhere you see us. And with that being said, I think that was one of the smoother intros I've ever done.
You hiccuped on Rumble, but other than that, no hate.
Other than
it's
that,
hot in here, so
I promise.
He must be getting the vapors.
I promise I will not rush to lose quality of the content in this episode, but I will try to be. Maybe this will work out for everybody. Maybe I'll shut the hell up a little bit more, a little sooner, and the episodes will be quicker.
Maybe if you weren't wearing 27 layers in July.
Listen, man, I had planned for a jacket for this episode, and I had to nix that because back in the
freaking got through it in the pre-roll, but
we did not.
Apparently, we're going to hear about the entire episode. Okay, got it.
So, with that being said,
on that memo.
let's just jump right into the culture corner. And On today's segment of the Culture Corner, we have. Did much of this happen before the Trump election? And what I mean by this, I mean the general thing of I'm going to take my ball and go home if I don't get what I want, right? Because when Trump got elected, a bunch of the lefties were like, I'm going to leave the country, and then none of them did. And, all this kind of stuff, right? Where they always threaten to leave or do something if they don't get their way. Was that a phenomenon that existed before Trump? I'm trying to remember. I don't think that it did.
It did. It existed back when Bush was president, the first one. There's always been, celebrities saying that I'm definitely going to leave the country if it goes this way, because God knows if it goes this way, then it's just untenable. And then it always comes to fruition that, the other person that they said that was definitely going to cause them to leave gets elected, but they don't leave, and they come up with, they just don't have any press releases for about 5 months, and then everybody forgets. But here's the problem with that threat too, is you also are assuming that the rest of us want you to be here in the first place.
Big assumption there, champ.
So I don't know who you're threatening with this. The View threatened to leave if Roe v. Wade got overturned. They threatened to leave the country.
Really? All of them, or
the whole show? And you know what?
That would have been fantastic.
What little cute little thing they did? They went to the Bahamas.
Oh,
they left the country
for a day
for one show in the Bahamas. You stalwart vixens. We should nail our colors to the mast with you.
Speaking of you giving me shit about arguing or getting upset
this was passed on to me, by the way. I don't watch The View.
Oh, well, no, I'm not accusing you of that.
Oh.
I'm just saying you were giving me shit about complaining about first world problems. What is more first world than saying I'm living under a tyrannical dictatorship that rivals Nazi Germany, so I'm going to take my multi-million-dollar show set up to the Bahamas, and that's what I'm going to do in protest.
If I don't get to force my viewpoint on you, then I'm going home.
I'm going to do it from the Bahamas.
Does that not sound like the most toxic girlfriend you've ever had? Or boyfriend? Pick your or other thing that you're choosing to date.
Attack helicopter.
Your toaster. I don't know.
Whatever
you're attracted to it. That's all. We're all inclusive here at the Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast. That's all I'm saying.
So what made us bring this up as part of the Culture Corner, and that is the Culture Corner thing of, maybe walk through this segment with us and decide, is this something that just started in 2016? I'm pretty sure it is, but it seems to be picking up in terms of the intensity. And the latest iteration of this, and what we're talking about today, is Michael Moore, that great moral and intellectual titan of American culture and popular opinion.
If I may, Dane, he's always been very centered. He's always been very thought out, well processed, never over the top, not misrepresentation. Definitely doesn't come from either side or the other. He's straight down the middle, just telling you just the facts, Jack.
Listen,
just the facts.
Second only to the Weapons of Meme Destruction, I think Michael Moore is the most nonpartisan, unbiased truth teller in America.
Run as the libertarian candidate?
I think so. He's pretty much the best guy ever.
He's pretty much Bowling for Columbine, Fahrenheit 9/11, Sicko. He's nailed it.
Yeah. He's right about everything all the time.
He's definitely never lied or misrepresented anything in any of those documentaries ever.
Ever. But what Michael Moore did is this past week and I'm going to try, I heard somebody talking about this recently, and I'm going to adopt his methodology. He's like, we don't call Christmas December 25th. We call it Christmas. That's the holiday, is Christmas. We don't call Halloween October 31st. Why do we call Independence Day 4th of July? Now, he might... So
you don't forget. Because if you didn't, there's a good amount of the population that'd be like, when did America become America?
Well, no, I think
it's hard enough for them to remember 1776.
And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I think he was getting
God
at
knows he puts enough in there anyway.
Is it's easier if you just remember it as the 4th of July instead of Independence Day about what you're truly trying to celebrate. Because remember, on Independence Day, we're celebrating, shooting at government officials and tax protests and illegal gun ownership, that kind of stuff. That's what we're celebrating.
Did the Crown come out and say, it was the darkest day in Britain's history? The colonies fired back at us.
But hey, listen, I digress because I'm already talking too much and it's still hot as shit in here. So not on the 4th of July.
I feel like I'm being held personally responsible for that, by the way.
Yes, the 4th of July is the date, but on Independence Day 2022, Michael Moore, in absolute humility, right? Because it's totally not a narcissistic piece of shit that writes an individual Declaration of Independence, so to speak, which is really more of like a declaration of do as I say, or I'm going to throw a temper tantrum is really what it was. But on Independence Day 2022, essentially modeled after the Declaration of Independence, Michael Moore writes over on his Substack, which we will include in the show notes at WMDpodcast.com/102. So you can read this drivel for yourself. He issues a 4-point, I don't know if it's a threat, an ultimatum, a mandate, whatever.
I believe they call it a manifesto.
It's not really a manifesto, whatever. Anyway, you get the point. Michael Moore's upset about the current state of the country, and he's going to tell you how upset he is, and David and I have thoughts.
Well, he's always been so happy with the country in a whole anyway. Like, he's always just gumdrops and lollipops.
He's a real ray of sunshine.
And what the hell does he have to be? Again, he shouldn't shouldn't the sun be shining out of his asshole right now because he's got control of the House, the Senate?
Wait, it doesn't?
I mean, he seems pretty miffed.
This seems like he thinks it does.
It seems like it's like, end of days. But his party has control of the presidency and the Senate and the House, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Almost. And we're only missing one branch.
Yeah.
And they've still got representation there too. But that's just not enough, is it? Almost absolute control is not absolute control, is it?
Well, see, and that's a very good theme for the purposes of Culture Corner, because we've brought this point up in a couple other contexts, but the most glaring one in recent memory is COVID. And it's the fact that it doesn't matter how much compliance out of 100% they can get. If there is one nail sticking up, they will obsess compulsively over that one nail. They'll lose their minds, right? So the fact that they don't have the Supreme Court, they're losing their minds. Michael Moore in his, declaration here in COVID, right? They got up to over 70-75% compliance in terms of the 2 rounds of vaccine or whatever relatively quickly. And then they were just super pissed at that other 20 or 30%. But yeah, no, that's
almost, and then might have intimated that their rights should be taken away until they comply.
Which actually has a very interesting theme running through Moore's declaration here. But we are gonna read the 4 points he has because it's only 4, but then the rest of his thing we're just gonna skim through. It's not that long. Again, you can read it in probably a minute and a half. But we're going to cover a little bit but for brevity of the Culture Corner segment to get to the rest of the episode, we're not going to read the whole thing in detail. But Moore's 4 points, and the first one's super short. He says, quote, "I refuse to live in a country threatened by white supremacy." Bold. I'm not leaving. So we've got a problem. I mean, that's not really a demand of it. That's just kind of, okay, whatever, fatty. You're not going to leave. We got a problem. Okay. I guess at least you're staying.
He's got an itemized list of like how white supremacy is prevalent within American society.
Oh, right? Yeah. He's very detailed about what this white supremacy is. Yeah.
He's got a
very specific.
Could you read some of those bullet points off?
Yeah. Okay. So the next number 2 in his list, quote, and I'm going to read through this pretty quick.
He doesn't have bullet points. That's my point. He just kind of shot into the air and said, "Take that." Oh,
I thought you were saying. Okay.
No, I.
You're right. Yeah. He doesn't have bullet points on what white supremacy is. Shocker. We know.
So no way to correct the problem, but there's a problem, but he didn't give you any ways to correct it, and he's going to be mad at you. Again, toxic girlfriend. That's all I'm saying.
It's just this omnipotent, omnipresent.
But he said it, so he's morally justified.
Evil cloud or beast that hangs over the country that we don't know how directly to attack, but it's there and it's responsible for all the problems that exist in the world. Nothing on his side of the fence. We'll get to more of that in a second. His second little thing in his list here says, quote, I cannot in good conscience continue to receive the privileges of full citizenship, he puts in quotes. Whatever the fuck that means. So what, are you going to give up the privileges? But sorry, I digress. Back to the quote. In this land, when all of its women and girls have now been, by court decree, declared official second-class citizens with no rights to their own bodies and conscripted to a life of forced birth should they fall pregnant and not want to be. Now, just that little part there in the middle, official second-class citizens with no rights to their own bodies, that sounds vaguely familiar of a not too distant past in this country.
Well,
where did that happen before?
Well, if recent memory serves, I believe it was your body doesn't get a choice if it affects my body. So therefore, you need to put into your body what I think is right for your body to keep me safe. And then over the course of a year, it turned back into my body, my choice, which was always their championship way before COVID. But then you said, okay, my body, my choice. How do we vote on this? Well, only women should get to vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you define what a woman is?
Or presumably Michael Moore, a man who agrees with them, doesn't get an opinion.
He doesn't get a say. How dare you, Michael?
Yeah.
How the dare you use your white male privilege to tell people what they can and can't do in this country? You white racist piece of shit. Go back to number one. You're a part of it now.
David, I thought I was the mad one on this episode.
What? I'm mad?
Nice work. Very upset.
I'm happy.
So,
just happy to be here, guys.
And listen, when he puts in the by court decree, again, I went over it very briefly in episode 101, so feel free to go back and listen to that. But the Dobbs decision doesn't do anything that I'll guarantee you, this moron has not read a syllable of that decision. It doesn't do anything of the sort of, let alone subjecting women to second-class citizenry or anything like that. It's not a nationwide ban on abortion, as they'll have you believe.
We're not doing clitoral mutilation on women.
It's none of that. It simply says, we, the Supreme Court, the most undemocratic institution of the three branches, right? Because there's no elections going on for the Supreme Court. You get elect president, and you get elect your legislatures. You don't get elect Supreme Court representatives. So it is by definition the most undemocratic branch of the three branches. And it says, hey, guess what? This seems like a pretty contentious issue. Reasonable minds can differ on it. We're not democratically elected, so we don't think it's our job to mandate a decision for the whole country. Take it up with your state legislatures. That's all it does. That's all Dobbs does. If Michael Moore wants to live in an abortion all the way up until birth, the baby's halfway out of the birth canal, and then you can still kill it. If that's what he wants,
what state does
he can make that utopia in California or New York or Illinois or New Jersey. Probably California.
I think he lives in California. Yeah. So his state was literally nothing got affected in his state. It's always been
nothing, not a single thing.
But he's sitting here screaming from the rooftops that it's the end of humanity as we know it, and nothing changed for him. Like if this isn't theater, then what is? And it's poor theater too. It's not. And again, to go back to what we said before we got in here, like if you're threatening to leave this country, Michael Moore, which we already know. He
says he's not.
We already know that you're not. So why are we? So you're just screaming then? You're just screaming to let us know how you feel? No one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck how you feel. Yeah. We're done with feelings now. We're moving forward. Go ahead, Dan.
Right. The next one, number 3 on his list of 4 things. Quote, I demand an end to the mass incarceration of Black Americans, an end to police shooting Black people, and I demand that reparations be made to the Black community for all they currently have to suffer and endure. And the only point I wanted to make about that one is, and he briefly references gun control as one of the things that he demands from this country, is a point that we've made about the whole police brutality, that whole BLM sort of universe is the same people, the Michael Moores of the world that are up in arms about that particular issue. And again, David and I would agree that police go overboard quite a bit, and that's not a good thing. The people that say that are the same people saying that only the police should have guns. You know those things, those little boom boom sticks that they keep killing innocent unarmed people with. A lot of them happen to be black, brown, or indigenous. To use their buzzwords. Yeah, that group of people who then gets off with qualified immunity or whatever. Those are the only ones that Michael Moore wants to have guns. Just throwing that out there. Just I've said my piece.
I had a point.
I'm sorry.
And I lost it.
Was it on that particular subject?
Within your rhetoric? Go back to the point that he was saying. What was the overall topic?
He demands an end to mass incarceration of Black Americans, an end to police shooting Black people, and he demands reparations be made to the Black community for all.
So the reparations, I've got a perfect place to start. Let's start with his bank account. Once we get all the way through his bank account, then we'll go all the way through that. Okay? And that's where we'll start with the reparations. Put your money where your mouth is. Instead of that hoagie, take the hoagie down, put your money there. Anywho, moving forward from that, when a nationwide pandemic happens, and all of a sudden, all these people get addicted to to a pill that they said definitely wasn't heroin, but was built with the same seed that heroin is made from, opium. Do you hold the worker at that particular job responsible for putting such a addictive substance on the market? Do you hold that individual worker responsible? No, you hold the head. So where do the police get all their funding from? Where do they get their money? Where do they get the auspices of what the laws they have to work within are?
That would be the elected officials, which whether you're in a red or a blue state, last time I checked, police brutality is happening in both. So it's not like the California utopia is completely immune to police brutality. So Michael Moore, many of the people that you're electing are given the police the resources to do exactly what you're complaining about.
And maybe if you thought about it a little bit more before you wrote something like that, it'd be really easy to avoid that pratfall. But here we are. You fell into another asshole. And let's go for another. What's number 4? What's big number 4? Dan?
Number 4, I don't even need to quote it because actually David bringing that up about the politicians and him living in a blue state and all that kind of stuff is a perfect segue to kind of explain the complete ridiculousness of 4. I'm only going to read the first sentence because the rest of it just falls right in line after that. Quote, I insist we remove every single Republican from office in November.
Well, so if he insists, Dane, how dare we persist with electing people that we see eye to eye with that might have a different perspective than him?
And as David had amply made the point about being so hopelessly brainwashed into the false left, right, red, blue dichotomy, he fails to see that Democrats are responsible for many of the same policies that he's complaining about in the rest of his declaration, but yet he thinks it's all going to magically be fixed if only the Republicans are gone. Now, again, David and I sit here on our throne of objectivity because we have no love lost for either the Democrats or Republicans. You might say that we're tribalistic in the sense of, being, dedicated to libertarianism, and that's fine. I'll take that objection perfectly fine. But in terms of my preferences being expressed in the political will or David's preferences, that never fucking happens.
No.
So if you're on the left or the right and you're complaining about the other side this or the other side that, last time I checked, for definitely our entire existence and for many decades before that, the only 2 parties in power have been either red or blue, and we are where we are with all of these issues that Michael Moore is so concerned about. So to pretend that his party hasn't been in power and been marching to the same beat of the tyranny drum along with Republicans, just with a little bit of different flavor, or as David says, with a little different colored wrapping paper, is completely just hopelessly and pathetically myopic and disingenuous, and he's just a piece of shit.
Well, what this just tells me is that they don't, and it's been indicative of the whole Democratic movement for the past, I don't know, it's fucking 10 years. It's that they don't even take time to go over what they've written and look to see where the possible flaws in their argument might be. All they're concerned with is to get it out and to seem as bleeding heart as they possibly can until you stand up against them. And then all of a sudden they want your head on a spit. Oh, and then your children to die of starvation too, because they want to cancel you. They want to take away your right to live or be able to earn a living. So again, this bleeding heart stuff falls on deaf ears, especially when you can't even proofread your shit before you send it out. But he took the time to sign, what's his name again?
Michael Moore.
Oh, that's right. Michael Moore. So Michael Moore, he took the time to sign it, or at least.
Well, actually, and the funniest part about this is right before he signed, the last thing he says is, "This I do declare." And I literally laughed out loud.
Declare.
Because
Mr. Beauregard.
I thought of the Michael Scott from The Office. I didn't say it. I declare it.
I declare bankruptcy. So
that's how seriously I take Michael Moore.
I was going to take it a little bit different and say that he was culturally appropriating. I do declare,
Well, yeah, but he gets to do that
because if you get to point fingers at everybody else, by God,
yeah. And so, listen, just to summarize the rest of it, he basically says that he wants 51% of Congress to be female, whatever that's going to change. And then he wants just the whole laundry list.
Not the best 51 representatives that you could possibly
51.
get. They just have to be female. So just pick a girl out of high school that's doing her lip gloss. Like, yeah, I'll bet that.
Or, speaking of Culture Corner, if the trajectory of society is going the way, it can be 51% transgender women, so still 100% male Congress.
What if I identify as a woman all the way up until I'm elected and then become a man again? Does that still count?
I mean, listen, unless you're going to deny whatever,
I declared it.
Whatever color on the universal flag of the community it represents fluidity.
It's also
unless you're disrespecting that.
It's plain monopoly.
So listen, Michael.
All I know is I'm screwed. That's all I know.
From
here and in Monopoly.
From Dane and David at the WMD podcast, a hearty, and I guess if I'm pressed on this in a court of law at some point in the future, I'm just going to say, blame the heat. I was in a mood, but from the deepest recesses of my heart,
in the bowels of our hearts,
go f*** yourself.
Bon voyage.
I declare that.
I declare that you should leave.
So, with that being said, we'll move on to the Epstein did not kill himself segment. And today, I know a lot of times, and the primary purpose of this segment is to point out when government has a history of doing something bad that they're now doing today, and this is why you shouldn't trust them, yada, yada, yada. But in this case, it's not the government directly, more it's their propaganda mouthpiece. And one of their chief rags that, basically regurgitates whatever the regime line is.
I like a good rag.
The Washington Post came out with an article this week. It's an opinion piece by a woman named Tamar Haspel. And the title says it all, but it says, quote, "Diet soda is fine. And 3 other food truths it's time you believed."
And there would definitely not be a financial benefit to them to write something like that, seeing as they call it big sugar, but seeing as Big Sugar is the greatest lobbyist in Washington to date. And
well, wouldn't she say that there's no sugar in diet sodas and that's why it's good for you?
So
I mean, that's not what she said here.
So why is it sweet? You don't get something for nothing, baby.
It's like fake shit, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, fake shit leads
sweet. It's not sugar.
Fucking cancer, doesn't it? Like, I can't prove it, but I know it's true. God damn it!
So,
like, if you're gonna cheat Mother Nature, she's gonna catch you.
She says that in the article. She says it's actually not responsible for any of the bad stuff they say it's responsible for. It's just that people who drink diet soda also have other healthy habits. Shocker. And that's actually what's causing all of the cancers and bad stuff. It's not the diet soda.
I stand corrected.
If you have it in moderation, the diet soda is great for you. It's actually probably an elixir. It's probably the nectar of the gods.
You know what? It's got so much preservatives in it that it probably preserves you from the inside, is what it does. So like you might be immortal. If you drink enough Diet Coke, you might transcend to the next plane, which is called death, you motherfucker. That's what it is. If you drink it, you'll have a tumor growing out of your fucking throat, but they'll have plausible deniability because it hasn't been proven that any of those chemicals cause cancer because they paid for it. But go ahead, Dave.
Well, what I'll say is, we encourage you to go to the show notes page, WMDpodcast.com/102. Read this article for yourself because she has 3 other, as the title says, she has 3 other food truths according to her, that basically just wind up being
Can we get a picture of this
very
person?
thinly veiled. I mean, it is at the top of the thing. She looks exactly how you'd expect. Actually, you know what? Since you haven't seen her, I want you to describe what I want. Let's play. What's that like? Does the person have glasses and you lay it down? Is it Guess Who?
Oh, Guess Who.
Yeah, we're playing Guess Who. All right. So does she have, all right, describe her.
Is her hair multicolored?
If multi means more than 2, or sorry, more than 1, then yes. I probably just gave too much away there, but.
Okay,
it's only 2 tones. I gave it away.
Okay. Are any of the 2 tones a natural hair color?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm going with blonde and blue.
No.
Can I get a black and gray?
It might be black. The picture's very small. What it looks to me is a light brown and gray, like she doesn't touch her roots. Like she's embracing the grain.
Does she shave her pits?
Couldn't tell you. It's a very small just shot of her face.
Let's go with neck circumference. Let's round it
okay,
down
yeah,
there.
go with that one.
Okay, like does she have a 16-inch neck?
Is that what's considered average?
I mean, let's go with a male neck. Like our necks would be roughly like 16.
Listen, I don't know if she's male or female. I'm not a biologist.
You're not a Scientologist, okay? We don't know how to do this.
But what is the average circumference of the human neck? David, this segment is going to be ridiculous if we go into this much detail.
Well, I'm just trying to get like a general weight. Because
You're
usually
failing.
if you're large...
I don't think you would win this game of Guess Who.
I feel like she's trying to make herself better is all I'm saying. It's like, she's like, I love Diet Coke, so I'm going to write an article that makes Diet Coke not bad for you.
Listen,
and
David,
then it'll be true because they follow the science.
She is a columnist, food. So she is not just a person with an opinion on the internet. She is a columnist about food, is her credentials.
That's possibly the most official thing that I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Not making an appeal to expert fallacy. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying that she's not entitled to her opinion because we're just 2 honyaks with the podcast. What does anybody care what we have to say? Right?
All I'm saying is I don't have to listen to you if your definition of your job sounds made up. Okay? I can make that choice for myself. And when you're saying shit that's like
diet soda is not bad for you.
You drink diet soda is like, that's not good for me. Like every sip you're like, I'm going to keep doing it, but I shouldn't. It's like eating buttery popcorn. You know it's not actual butter.
And you know what? Listen, and we've kind of lost the plot of the Epstein didn't kill because you probably guessed it, right? The point we're trying to make here. The whole point is this rag, this one of the chief mouthpieces for the regime, which spent the last 2.5 years telling you to jam a needle in your arm and I'm not going to say the word, and you don't say the C word, and we're not going to say the V word because I don't want to get this taken off YouTube.
Not even going to say the number.
But they wanted you to force medicate yourself without hardly ever, if at all, mentioning that the number 1 factor in terms of causing, worse outcomes relative to, survivability was being overweight and unhealthy.
It's to look like you drink a lot of Diet Coke.
It may have been age, but it was basically like unhealthy and age were 1A and 1B.
If you look like you drank a lot of Diet Coke, you should hope to God that you don't get the C word.
So all the while that this propaganda piece is saying, who cares about your health? Ignore it. Just, get this medical procedure against your will. Now comes out after the whole need for that necessary procedure apparently just disappeared. Do they even publish the death counts anymore?
As we all know, Dane. as we've
haven't heard
addressed on this
anything about that.
podcast multiple times, to
Putin
work
fixed it.
out is to be fat phobic and racist. So if you work out, you are a bad person because you are fat shaming other people that aren't willing to work out. You idiot. You bigot.
So, and that's it. That's the point that we wanted to make about this is at some point, listen, it's either stupidity or it's evil. Now, one would think that if it was purely stupidity, that every once in a while they would fall ass backwards into the right answer. Just because they're basically, it's just blind luck. They're just walking around tossing darts in a bar and eventually they hit the bullseye on a dartboard. If it was purely stupidity, every once in a while they'd hit the bullseye. But the fact that they always have the wrong conclusions all the time.
Well,
they
they're
always
excuses.
say
It's not a
forced
conclusion.
medical procedure instead of just eating healthier
It's
and
an
exercising.
excuse.
Or saying that what puts you in that situation is now fine. And all of the other myriad of things that these propaganda rags put out, it's always wrong. Which is like, if you say it's evil, then you're like kind of treading towards conspiracy land. And I'm not trying to do that. But really, I'm looking for an answer to explain to me that it's stupidity. And I don't see it.
They've done studies on the chemicals that are in Coca-Cola, and it caused the rats a myriad of health problems that they performed the studies on. So to say follow the science to steal their own verbiage it's not even farcical. At this point, they're just saying, look at the shiny thing. Oh, does it feel good? Do it. Do it more. Do it to the point where you can't feel it anymore. Like, and that's not to say, I'm not to say I'm the guru of fitness, and I'm sure Dane wouldn't either, but we eat shitty delivery pizza every now and again. We eat burgers every now and again.
Me more so than David. That's why I dress up, so I cover up the rolls.
Don't be gauche. Or don't be that guy.
Don't let him be humble
Don't be
co-host
that guy.
right now. Just 5 minutes ago, well, more than 5 minutes ago, before we turned the cameras on, he was calling me fat. So, talk to him about that in the comments. That's rude.
You can't prove that.
That's body-ist.
Yeah,
body shapeist.
No, it'd be fat shaming.
Oh, okay. There's already a word for that.
Yeah, they already. It's like their first button they press. Anyway,
but I digress.
all we're saying is like, I know when I put something that tastes really good into my mouth, I'm like, I shouldn't eat this, but I know full well I'm going to, and I'm going to pay for it later, either by the work that I have to do to work it off or health-wise. So you can't keep doing this. Like, you have to take, again, accountability. Like, we need to get back. Like, if there's a simple phrase to get back to where we need to be in this country, it's just personal accountability. That's it. That's all you need to do. I'm responsible for me, and I will do the best for me to make this country the best it can be. So they don't have to worry about me. I'm taking care of me. You guys figure it out for the rest of yourselves.
Well, you closed the loop earlier on that, on bringing the point up about the whole, like they've done studies and, follow the science, using their words and stuff like that. And it was funny because when I read that title, I go, what's going to be done with this article? Nobody's going to look at her, any of that kind of stuff, right? Somebody is going to read that headline, an avid diet soda drinker who's had probably an argument with their family or friends or whoever cares about them enough to tell them the truth.
See, I
as
told
opposed
you so.
to just affirming their self-destructive behaviors. They're going to send that article and be like, see, look, hey, look, not bad, huh? See, I told you, basically affirming their bad decision for themselves, which again, they're adults, they're free Americans.
Does she cite any articles of science and studies that she's basing her
she
on?
has links, which I violated my rule of not click. I did not click the links when I should have, but yeah, she ostensibly, refers to things. I don't know what the studies are, but the point is that I'll bet you there is a big overlap between that person who just shares this and says, see, look, my lifestyle is affirmed, and the people who were screeching all during COVID saying, follow the science, trust the science, you're a science denier, yada, yada, yada. It's just the title that affirm. And again, back during the last couple of years when some stuff was happening, think about all of turn these people into second-class citizens for refusing a medical procedure and all that kind of stuff. all it was articles from the Washington Post being thrown around with the titles confirming preconceived notions, right? They'd throw out a scary death total of, oh, the unmedically treated are so much more of the population of deaths. And, they throw out claim after claim after claim, which turned out to be false. And that was following the science for them.
Well, they would
like they'd follow this science and continue to drink diet soda into an early grave.
Brush with facts. They would say, well, the average, it was 2.6 when we were bringing it up a lot when COVID was still a thing, but now it's...
we made it so far, David.
Oh,
we're still going to put it on YouTube.
You. Anyway, you can't just be banished because you say a
thing that exists
or that you held us accountable for 2.5 years.
Do you have any idea how hard it was for me in mid a bunch of those rants to not say the stuff?
I understand.
And then you just let it out all willy-nilly.
This is the heat getting at. This is the heat getting at you.
Yeah, it is.
You're feeling a little hot over there.
I'm gonna let you tie the bow on this segment before.
All I'm saying is they would brush with facts. They would say, like, at the height of it, the average comorbidities were 2.6 of the people that were killed by COVID. But they wouldn't tell you what the two comorbidities were. The number one was obesity. The second was diabetes, which is also linked with obesity. So they would come real close with it, but they would never say what it was. Which they would never say that vitamin D helps with it. An active lifestyle helps with it. Being more healthy helps to defeat CVID. Can I call it CVID? Or are they still going to catch up with me?
Yeah, that stuff.
The dirty stuff. Anyway, so again, they'll brush with facts as long as it agrees with them, and then as soon as it doesn't agree with them, they throw it aside. Don't drink Diet Coke. Don't drink Coca-Cola. And if you're going to do it, moderation is key. Just like everything else in this godforsaken world, moderation is key. Don't drink 15 Diet Cokes thinking that you can replace water with Diet Cokes, because you will literally grow another you outside of your face within 2 days. I'm hyperbolic, but
I know I said I was going to give you the last one on that segment, but while you were talking, I went to the article and clicked the link, because since you brought it up, it bothered me that I hadn't clicked the link. So the link that I clicked that she has highlighted in that article is
paid for by Coca-Cola.
Quote, there is zero evidence that diet soda is bad for you. And then when you click the link, guess where it takes you? It takes you to another one of her opinion articles at the Washington Post. This one,
her reference was
herself,
just sitting there chugging Diet Cola.
Now, okay. Here's the funny thing.
I'm totally fine.
And listen, just for the sake of this episode not going for 4 hours, all right. She does have links in this article where she claims studies that show that it's not bad or whatever. But I do just want to point out one thing, because this was said about during the last 2 years about people like me and David, right? What was one of the main refrains when you would bring up data to say that they make this outlandish claim about risks and all that kind of stuff, and you bring up the data and they go, well, you're not a scientist. You can't read charts and interpret data or whatever the case may be, right? So she starts out the article that she linked to, making herself the expert to herself. Weird. Is she has some quotes.
That's fucking genius, by the way.
She has quotes from the American Heart Association, from the Canadian Dietary Guidelines, U.S. Dietary Guidelines, and public health officials that say things like, quote, limit low-calorie sodas, quote, stick to water, quote, it's best to avoid artificial sweeteners. So she's linking to the alleged experts, saying that the experts saying it is wrong and that she's right because she read the studies and got the right answers. Now, listen, the reason I bring that point up is not to say that she can't do any of this. Again, this is what David and I did during the last 2 years. If you are a human being of marginal intelligence, you can read and interpret data. You don't need to go to 8 years of,
science school,
the Ivy League, top tier, whatever, to be able to have an opinion on this stuff. So we're not saying that she can't do that. She's perfectly allowed to. What we're saying is that for people like David and us to do the same thing, just in a different context, we were everything but white. Well, we probably were white boys because by having those opinions, we were white supremacists or something, whatever. Anyway, she's doing the exact same thing, and Washington Post publishes it both then and now as if it's gospel truth. So, I suggest to you, dear listener and viewer, there might be a bit of a double standard going on. Just a bit. Just like that much.
And I wonder why podcasts are surging and media outlets are dying as we go along. I wonder why. Is it possibly because you do this shit daily?
Yeah.
Every story that you come out with, it seems like
pushing in one direction. Just
but then
be weak,
Joe
be
Rogan's
sick, and
fault.
depend on us.
It's podcasts. Yeah. It's people that don't have the credentials. Meanwhile, they're like actual biochemists and they've got their own podcast and whatever. I don't know shit. I'm not a Scientologist. I don't know how to speak science to people. Dane, let's move past this icky stuff and let's get into some real stuff that we're actual experts in.
As we get into the main, this is why we pay David the big bucks on the show, and it's because of his impromptu, totally unintentional, but very necessary, reminding me of my own rule to click the goddamn links. So that extra little tidbit of glorious hilarity that was just bestowed upon all of us was thanks to David reminding me to click the link. So David, with that, I thank you.
I do become kind of valuable every now and again.
Every now and again. So with that being said, the last story in the main part of the show, and a rather big one that sometimes we say, oh, well, these are such big topics, unless you're under a rock, you know about it. I wouldn't be surprised if a not insubstantial portion of our listener / viewership
to be honest with you, Dane,
hasn't heard about this.
I wouldn't have known about it until you sent me a couple of videos and articles about it. So if you don't know about it, no shame on you because they don't cover it.
And which is exactly the point. This is a big fucking deal. It's just as big a deal as a couple years ago. Remember when the French were losing their minds and they had their like yellow vest parades or whatever? Or in China a few years, or was it Hong Kong? Something like that.
Hong Kong is different from China. Yeah, they were something about
with the umbrella
rights.
protest.
Right, yeah. Yep.
So what I'm saying is like you're seeing these
Hong Kong. It was Hong Kong, not just China. Hong Kong.
What you're seeing is these rise ups around the world. In places other than the United States, right? Because a lot of people just think that the world revolves around the United States. But governments are overstepping their bounds in a lot of places. And the fact that people are rising up around the world, it's not a coincidence they don't play this in American media. Because as we've made this point on this podcast the last couple episodes.
Trudeau with the semis, by the way. With the shipping.
Exactly. Another example of government overstepping their bounds and the people doing something about it. 400 million guns in private hands that we know of in the United States, and over 1 trillion rounds of ammo. The American regime's propaganda rags do not at all want you seeing that other less armed, more vulnerable populations to their own government, and that will be a theme in this main part of this episode, are standing up. They definitely don't want us to. And so you should be very upset that your mainstream media, if they do talk about the and again, what we're talking about here is the farmer protest going on in the Netherlands, this is very big and important information for the broader concept of freedom and liberty around the world. And that's exactly why they don't want to talk about it.
So what's the story, Dane? Hit us with the knowledge.
So the story is over the last maybe week and a half, but maybe just this week, the Dutch government voted to pass into law, pollution regulations, which reduce the number of nitrogen oxide and ammonia gases that are released from, and the main target here is cows. Like, remember, 5-10 years ago, it was just a joke, like, oh, we got to tackle cow farts because of climate change. And everybody's like, oh, remember it started out as a joke? Well, now it's actual policy in the Netherlands, which can force many farmers completely out of business or to substantially change their farming practices if they want to remain in business, because it's going to have to basically make farmers kill a massive portion of their herd if they're going to meet these emission standards. So the farmers were naturally pissed. And by some
means they're going to
estimates,
produce less meat, which means they're going to make less money, which means they won't be able to support themselves, which means more people will have less food. Thusly, more people will be more reliant on the government to supply them with the food that they need.
Soylent Green is people.
Again, I'm not a Scientologist. I'm not a math magician. But I do know when shit doesn't smell right. It's supposed to smell like shit.
And, oh, sorry.
No, I was done. I was done.
So by some estimates, 40,000 farmers have gathered in the agricultural heartland of the Netherlands, blocking parking their tractors on roads, all that kind of stuff. Very similar to the trucking protests in Canada, which we're more familiar with because that's a little bit harder to bury when it's your neighbor right to the north. And just to kind of give you a scope of how big of a deal this is, I saw somewhere, and it could have been wrong, but after the United States, the second largest agricultural exporter in the world is the Netherlands. Now, again, maybe because it's not in this article that's linked on the show notes page, I couldn't find it again. But the scope of agriculture from the Netherlands is this, according to this article. According to a national farming lobby group, LTO, there are nearly 54,000 agricultural businesses in the Netherlands, with exports totaling 94.5 billion euros in 2019. That is a massive food exporter. So it's not just the farmers in the Netherlands that are impacted by legislation. Every time you see Sarah McLachlan doing her, sad songs about, somebody starving in Africa and stuff like that, keep in mind that this legislation takes food out of the global mouth, the collective mouth, so to speak, makes food more expensive, and forces production into other avenues that the market didn't naturally choose. Arbitrarily, just by a simple stroke of the government pen. And when you look at starvation, and and everybody wants to blame capitalism, and it's not efficient, and it doesn't share the resources equally, and blah, blah, blah. This single piece of legislation will do more to starve people all over the world than 500 years of problems arising from capitalism.
Hey, Dane. In war, when you get shot and the medics come over to you, what do they say? Do they say, oh, we shouldn't plug this hole because even if we plug this hole, they could eventually become infected. And if it gets infected, it could get into their bloodstream. It could cause an infection within their bloodstream that would eventually lead to their death anyway. So I might as well just let them bleed out right now. Or did they stop the bleeding to save them right now and deal with the problems later? What makes more sense? To let them bleed out and die, or to give them a chance to live in the first place?
I mean, sounds like a pretty simple answer for option 2 to me.
Right. So how many people die each year of global warming? Do we have any figures on that?
Actually, you'll be interested to know.
Would love to know.
That the number of deaths globally from climate-related causes have plummeted since the world has warmed over the last 100 years. More people die from cold than heat by a mile. And so as the world gets warmer, less people die from climate-related causes.
Well, thank you, Greta, for pointing out all of our ways and thus changing everything for you. But my point being is that the first thing that you need to make sure is that the first tenet of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are met, which is food, water, shelter. Food, water, shelter. Just be able to survive.
In the modern world, energy. Because energy produces all the shelter and makes all the shelter livable.
But what I'm saying is that it's more important that you eat today and figure out tomorrow than it is to starve today and be dead tomorrow. Because if you don't eat today, you're not going to be here tomorrow to fix the goddamn problems. So what are they really trying to fix here? There's, again, not to bring the C word back into it, but there's this invisible monster that's there to be scared of.
And only they can protect you from it.
And they know best, even though nearly constantly they're sending pics to fucking girlfriends outside of their marriage and get caught.
Or riding on private planes to secret islands to diddle underage girls and not get in trouble for it because they did all the right things while they were in office.
Or insider trading in front of our faces. And then when we ask them, hey, are you insider trading? They say, it's none of your fucking business. You poor fucking shit.
Get these pores out of here.
Ugh, I don't even want to be around them. Their poor might get on me. Anyway, my whole point being is we trust these fuckers with our lives, and they clearly don't care about it. Like, again, make sure my basic needs are met, and then let's work our way up the food chain. Literally.
Now, and again, without getting too much into the details, obviously you can see the point David and I are trying to make is this isn't just the Netherlands, and it's not just now and it's going to be fixed and everything will be fine. When you look at policies being pushed and the rhetoric around, both from politicians, from celebrities, from their mouthpieces that just regurgitate the regime line, it's always this push towards got to have more green, global warming's bad, much like the C word. We're the only ones that can fix it. We fix it with legislation. We are the hammer, so everything to us looks like a nail. So if we got to throw half of our farmers off of their farms and decrease global food security to the extent that it is by this policy, we are willing to do that because it's better for the planet.
By the way,
think about that in the non-abstract, and what you have is exactly what happened in the Netherlands. And what you have in terms of these you get to make your own choices about your food policies all around the world. It's always after some evil that is always ill-defined, constantly changing, and because it's constantly changing, it magically justifies every policy they have to address it. Isn't that convenient?
And in order to make sure that transparency is paramount, it all starts with them first, right? Their rations of food will be cut before yours, right? They're your representative. They need to feel the effects of their legislation before it trickles down to you, right?
Much like Michael Moore giving up his first dime to make sure that reparations are paid. You noticing a theme between the people that want to rule the world and the people that actually do?
It's always nice. Like, I love to say, Dane, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to donate all of my funds to the Black Lives Matter. And I'll be a better person for it.
You'll certainly be better than me.
You know what that makes me feel right now? It makes me feel good. Well, not really. But it would make me feel good if I was a leftist.
If you really believed in it.
If I really believed in it.
Yeah.
And then I wake up tomorrow and be like, can't really do that because I want to go get my mani-pedi tomorrow and need to be massaged because I got that crick in my neck that's really been bothering me. And I only got 8 hours of sleep last night. I really wanted 10, but I only got 8. So, you know what? I'll donate like $5 when Christmas comes around. That's just as good, right?
Yep. That's exactly the way these people
when
are,
the
for sure.
Does any of this matter to, like, the complacency of the normal person is the true downfall of all of our society. And it's not just our society anymore, it's a global society. If you think that Norway, being the second biggest producer of foodstuffs in the
global
world,
exporter.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and they're trying to minimize how much food. Like, when was the last time you heard it was a good idea to minimize how much food you create? When was the last time that you heard that it was a good idea to not have so much water anymore? Drinkable water, I mean. That's never... Well, we don't need so much gas, okay? We'll operate on less gas. And then the gas that we're going to have, we'll just charge them an ass load for, so they'll be less likely to buy it. Like, when are these ever good ideas for moving forward? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, the number that I got may have been, largest exporter, number 2 in the world per capita. It could have been that because they're actually number 6 in the world. Germany, United Kingdom, China, and France come above them in terms of exporting food outside their country's borders. That's the rankings. The United States number 1. So they were 6 instead of 2, but still, high on the list. This isn't like you think of the Netherlands as a small country, and it is. So you wouldn't be surprised to be like, oh, well, they're like the 51st global exporter. No, they're in the top 10. So, cutting their capacity to be able to contribute to, the global bowl of food, so to speak, right? When we were in Catholic school, what do we have? The Rice Bowl, Operation Rice Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah. So to the global rice bowl
carton
of feeding people, I don't think if people that write these kind of articles and are in government and pass these policies or whatever, that will say that global poverty is a human blight and we need to eradicate it and we need to feed everybody and yada, yada. I guarantee you they hold that position. And yet their policy goes directly against it. And here's the reason why you can't take anything they say seriously, as David was making the point earlier. And it's because look at their demonstrated behavior. We brought it up during the Michael Moore segment. In 2016, so many of people that think like this are saying, I'm leaving the country. And their rhetoric is Trump is a literal, we're not joking, not metaphorical, a literal Nazi. He is Hitler reincarnate. This is what they said. And presumably, if you take them at their word, you believe that they are sincere about that belief. And that's why they're going to leave the country. But they didn't.
Only there was a child's fable that we could think of right in this very moment that would totally put the hammer on top of the nail. The boy who cried wolf. If you cry wolf long enough, no one believes you anymore. People stop listening to you. That's the scary thing. And now they've cried wolf so much that they can't even say wolf anymore. They have to say werewolf. And then they have to say mega werewolf. And then they have to say super ultra Godzilla mega wolf. Blah, blah, blah. Like they have to keep upping the ante for you to believe them because they are so unbelievable till this point. Like that's what's happening right now. Like they're telling you what they think you need to hear to keep you afraid. But they're doing horrific things that you should be more afraid of than the thing that they're telling you you should be afraid of, period.
And just like they said in 2016, I'm going to leave and didn't, is just like they say, I care about the poor, and then they pass policies that don't, is just like they say, be worried about global warming, I'll be the one to fix it. Every single time their demonstrated behavior tells you not to trust these people.
But Dane, if only they had a democratic dominancy in the judicial house. We'd live in a utopia right
in
now.
the United States would fix everything else around the world magically.
Like women would be the same as men. They are, but we just pretend they're not. LGBTQ would be accepted universally. They are. We just like everything. I don't know. I've lost my will to argue with this anymore. I feel like we've driven this nail through the stud into the other stud in the other house and out their wall. At this point,
you are correct. We just have 2 more points to make about this topic. One is, and I'm going to mess his name up because it's Dutch, but Prime Minister Mark Rutte, Rutte. How would you say that?
Rutte?
Yeah.
Rutte?
Okay. So yeah, that guy
does this have little dimples?
Is the prime minister. So for the Americans that don't know about, what those titles mean in different countries, he is the counterpart to the Canadian Castro or the Boris Johnson in the UK. He's the head guy in charge.
El Capitan.
And here's a quote from him. Quote, freedom of speech and the right to demonstrate are a vital part of our democratic society, and I will always defend them. Remember what we just said about listen to what they say, watch what they do. I will always defend them. Always is the qualifying word. What does always mean, David? Without exception?
Most of the time.
I would say without exception. I would say that's like a principle. You don't break that.
I'll get that next time.
Back to the quote. But
see? Well, then you shouldn't have said always, you motherfucker.
See?
Now you tripped over your own shoelaces. You're globe-trotting into the end zone and fucked yourself up.
This is how you pick apart what politicians and people that want to rule your life say versus their demonstrated actions and realize when you're being fed a line of shit. Now, maybe you don't have to be this detailed with it, but because most people have that natural instinct, this piece of shit's lying to me. And if you listen to that, you're going to be right like 99% of the time. But anyway, back to his quote, he says, "But it is not acceptable to create dangerous situations. It is not acceptable to intimidate officials. We will never accept that." So it went from always to never.
You'll never.
Interesting.
Intimidation. What is intimidation? Can you be federally indicted for intimidating somebody?
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's like a public official or something like that. They'll say it's a terroristic threat or a threat to Homeland Security or something.
I felt intimidated multiple times in my life.
Yeah, but you're not a big fancy know everything politician.
So it's what's good for thee is not for meism.
Right, because even though you live in a country of, by, and for the people, which means that the people elected are supposed to rule on your behalf, you are the sovereign. Yet, it's an odd point that you make there that they have special exceptions and not us.
That's
that doesn't seem like we rule, does it?
It feels like we should have more rights than them, doesn't it?
It does.
And they should be held to a higher standard and to a higher degree of law, but it feels like we're held to a higher standard degree of law. It's almost like we should hold them more accountable for their actions and less accountable for their words ourselves. But then they also have to say that you can't do that. You can't make us feel scared. Because if you make us feel scared, it's a crime. And you shouldn't make us feel scared because we're trying to do our best, despite the fact that we're taking advantage of laws that we're never going to get held accountable for, but you'll get thrown in jail for. And we're taking advantage of the things that we're writing laws that are going to hurt you medically down the road and going to hurt your health inexplicably, but we're getting paid like $1 million in stipends. So you'll never hear about that though. So we're going to go ahead and do that because it's good for me. But if you make me feel bad about that or make me feel scared about you like holding me accountable for it, you're a felon again. Okay, so like I'm doing my best job even though I'm not, and you need to just accept that and then fight who the real people that you need to fight are the people that don't agree with me. Go out and fight them because they're the ones that are ruining your lives, even though I'm sitting here ruining your life purposefully so that I can make more money.
That was the most lucid and complete admission. If you were to hear something even remotely similar to that from a sitting politician, your head would probably explode. I think I'm not misusing the word literally when I say that. I think heads will literally explode.
I don't think they would.
That would tear fabrics in the space-time continuum.
But we know they do it. That's the
No, I know, but what I'm saying is they don't say it. They say shit like this. I will always defend it.
I would vote for that motherfucker for the next election cycle, the next 20 elections.
Just for telling you that?
You know what? I appreciate that. Thank you. I applaud you. At least you told me what you're all doing up there. So anyway.
Okay, and then the last thing, because we're already way over an hour, and I was like, we're going to be short because I'm hot. And here I sit. I'm still alive an hour in.
You're not even schwitzing. You don't even have a glisten.
Is a tweet thread that I read. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Oof. That is a hard one.
By a guy named Tucker Max, and that name sounds familiar, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, he had a tweet thread about the whole farmer protests in the Netherlands, and included with it were some videos that apparently some of the farmers, the protesters, are videoing with their camera phones or whatever, but of the police in the Netherlands opening fire. Now, I didn't see anything in reference to the videos that these were, like the bean bags or paintballs or whatever. Like, they were making it sound like this was live fire, and you can watch the videos. You can go to WMDpodcast.com/102, click on the Twitter link. It'll take you to Tucker Max's thread, and embedded in the thread, he has the videos. So watch them for yourself and decide. The videos claim, and it sure as hell sounds like, the police are opening fire on these unarmed farmers. And here's the point, because we are told, and what I mean by we is anybody who is, I guess, what you call a Second Amendment absolutist, or somebody who just thinks the right to self-defense is inalienable, endowed to you by God, nature, or whatever, but it didn't come from government and sure as hell not off some damn piece of paper. But for those of us who think like that, and why we always say, don't give up your guns. Your right to self-defense is inalienable. It's for protection against your government. Do you think the United States government has the balls to start shooting at unarmed civilians in the United States? With the exception of police brutality case, but I'm talking about in the sense of a potential revolutionary type gathering.
Let me answer that question for you. You do if you watch media.
Oh yeah, no, you
because they'll paint it in a different direction. But
they always they make sure to let you know within the broadcast that they're shooting bean bags and stuff like that. They're not shooting live ammunition at people. What I'm saying is that's a whole nother step.
All I'm saying is that if you think they've come this far and would not misrepresent that, then I think you're being naive.
Yeah, I mean, of course they would. But what I'm saying, their incentive, if they're misrepresenting or they're telling the truth,
right?
Their incentive to make sure that you believe that's non-lethal ammunition. And why do you think that's the case?
And they'll say that somebody died of a heart attack because of corollary conditions.
But why do you think that's the case? Because even if it was fake news, word started getting out to those 400 million registered firearms, not including the unregistered boat accident ones, and the 1 trillion rounds of ammo, you get a small portion of that starts hearing that the United States government or police force is live firing ammunition at unarmed citizens. That's a whole nother step. So of course, whether they're lying about it or not, they definitely don't want that in the news. Apparently that's what's happening in the Netherlands. Again, watch the videos for yourself. And so I just posit this to you in the broader American discussion. I understand the Netherlands doesn't have the same sort of anti-government, pro-liberty culture, history, and tradition that the United States does. I get it. So I'm not expecting them to bring American values and ideas and culture into their own political struggles there. But what I'm saying is that the reason why those of us self-defense absolutists say that all the time is because we don't know whether or not the privately held guns in the United States is what's holding our government back from doing similar things. But I would rather not find out that I was wrong than sit here and say, we don't know. Maybe it is a deterrent. Maybe it's not. I'll take my chances with we don't know.
Well, and just to drive that nail even further into the stud, it's really hard to get your rights back once you give them up. When was the last time that you heard that we won't be looking in your emails anymore? We won't be monitoring your text messages. We won't be watching your internet searches. You're never getting that back. So if you think that giving up guns is a good idea, just on the off chance that it's not, if there's an inkling inside you that says that maybe my hands won't work to defend my life and the life of my family, then you shouldn't give it up. Because if you do, if you're willing to give it up on an emotional level, on an emotional, moral high ground, if you give it up in that moment, you're never getting it back. And you're going to regret it. Yeah, I have a feeling you're going to regret it. Anyway.
2 quotes to finish me off on this one.
Ooh.
I think a Japanese proverb or something like that. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And then the last quote is more of an adage. I don't know if it's directly attributable to anybody, but it's you can vote your way into tyranny, but you have to shoot your way out. So if you're going to run the risk of voting yourself into tyranny, you might not want to allow yourself to be disarmed just in case you repeat history. Like for the umpteenth time.
All of the history. All of the history. Well, let me tack on another little note to you. Better to die quick fighting on your feet than to live forever begging on your knees. And with that, Dane, where can they find this little jewel of nepotism that we've recorded tonight?
Boy, we were long-winded. I'm glad I made it. I made it to the end of our long 102 journey.
I haven't seen a bead yet.
The makeup crew is amazing. When the camera switches over to you, they're over here dabbing me. They're dabbing me. So they can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/102. They can find it on any podcast app. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the videos on, despite David's C-word slip up, they can get it on YouTube. They can get it on Odyssey, and they can get it on Rumble if you're a video kind of person. And then socials. That's where we're the most active. And I haven't been personally.
You say the word "we" a lot.
We've been putting up clips on our TikTok from these full episodes, but I personally haven't been on there, chopping it up with you guys on TikTok in a while. So I promise to get back to that. But also Twitter and Instagram. Just follow us. Search Weapons of Meme Destruction on all those platforms. Follow us, like, engage, all that good stuff. David, 103. I'm not going to ask you again because, listen. It was hard whittling down the 3 topics for this week because there was a lot of the Georgia Guidestone, Shinzo Abe getting shot in Japan, despite the fact that literally no one can get a handgun. CERN getting turned back on. Jesus Christ. Big week in the final chapter. We're expanding it outside the United States. The final chapter of the world.
Listen.
So I don't know what we'll cover next week.
As long as, like, when I was, to let you into my life, when I was a 3rd grader, I thought the end of the world was coming on. And then being a member of Catholic school, I knew the proverb saying that no man, not even myself, Jesus is quoting himself, not even I know the day or the time, referring to I don't know the end of the world. So every time I was going to bed.
And by the way, unlike Tamar Haspel, Jesus is allowed to quote himself. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. but all I'm saying is that when I heard that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to save humanity. Every night before I went to bed, I was like, the world's going to end tomorrow. And I went to bed. Like,
I just got what you're saying.
I was like, I just saved the world, bitch. Whatever. Because I called it, God. I called it.
So it can't be.
Checkmate, motherfucker. Good luck. Creator of all existence, supposedly.
That is the most David thing I think I've ever heard in my life.
I did it for like a whole year.
You're not the person who is going to like get in some long protracted debate about the existence of God. You're just gonna make some quip like that.
I'm gonna make a diagonal move and see what you do. Your move, God. Choose wisely.
Listen, we talked for a long time. I think this is the best part of the episode.
Excellent.
This is getting clipped onto TikTok. Okay. David gets mad because there's not enough of him on there. Even though I
choose not to be on there, but I get mad that I'm not. I'm like, I need to be imposed over Dane's shoulder.
He just wants the TikTok CEO to knock on his door tomorrow and say, you know what? You know what our app's missing? Billions of users.
I just want you to want me.
Some more David.
I want you to want me. I want to get a little. Anyway.
So anyway, yes.
Before this is any more long-winded.
This clip is going on the TikTok just so David shuts up and because I genuinely think it was the best part of the show. So, David, next week, we'll see the folks on 103.
We both know I'm not going to shut up. Yes, we're going to see you on 103. And be safe, but more importantly, stay free.